Okay, so we've met these two characters, Isabella and Ferdinand, and we're gonna meet a third character, three. Not Napoleon. Cristoforo Columbus, and as Isabella and Ferdinand are winning their civil war against Juana, the illegitimate daughter of Henry, as the civil war is happening in Castilla, Columbus is getting important experience as a merchant sailor for the city of Genoa, which is the city in Italy, a city-state where was born, his hometown, Genoa. So Columbus is an Italian. He is more precisely a Genoese, because in the 15th century, in the 1400s in Italy, you didn't have Italy. It wasn't a thing. Really, you had the independent city-states that were often at war with each other. So, like, Genoa's big enemy was Venice, okay? So, Columbus is a Genoese. His father had gotten these position for him as an apprentice on merchant vessels, a merchant sailor. How did his father do this? His father had a lot of connections as a wool merchant, as someone who owned a tavern and imported wine. He had a lot of business contacts, okay? And he also had allies high up in the government of Genoa who got Christopher Columbus's father a nice position as the gatekeeper of the city at one of the gates. Came with a nice stipend. Also, everybody trusts the gatekeeper because he's got to let you in and out. So if you don't, it shows he's well trusted. So he's got all these connections. So that's how Columbus gets in to his position as an apprentice on some merchant vessels as a teenager, okay? And Columbus started his career as a sailor, as a merchant sailor, at the age of 14. That's when he got his first apprenticeship through his father. And the type of ship that he's sailing on is called a caravel, okay? And a caravel is a merchant ship, and it's got a square sail and also a triangular sail. And this meant that it could travel in the Atlantic, where the square sail was more useful, and it could also travel in the Mediterranean, where the triangular sail was more useful, okay? And it was sturdy enough that it could handle the bigger waves in the Atlantic, okay? But it was also light enough that it could kind of maneuver in and around the waves and hug the coastlines. So this was the preferred ship that the most successful merchants in the time period of Columbus were using, okay? And he makes several trips. He's going to the Greek islands. He goes as far north as England. On the way back from England in 1476, as that civil war is happening in Castilla, Columbus, who's still employed at this point by the Genoese ship owners, the guys that owned the ship there, they're also the guys that purchased the merchandise to put on the ship to take here and there. They're employing him as the apprentice. He's on the ship. The ship gets attacked by some French pirates. Nasty. Okay, the ships sink. So there's Columbus. He's got to swim through the waters to survive. He swims to the island of Lagos, which is near Portugal. Okay, that's where he ends up. And from Lagos, he gets to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. Okay, and he settles in a part of the city where a lot of Genoese people have set up a little neighborhood for themselves. Okay, the Genoese quarter of the city, it's called. And he learns how to speak Castilian as well as Spanish. And it was these languages that the elite people in Portugal, those were the languages they spoke, okay? So by the time the Civil War in Castilla ends, which is 1479, Columbus has married, and he's had a son born to him the next year in 1480. Diego was his son's name. All right, so we talked about Columbus being the merchant sailor. He's quite good at it. To be a merchant sailor, you've got to be good not only at navigation, but also potentially at warfare, as we saw the French pirates were attacking him, as well as business. You got to sell the merchandise once you get to the port, okay? As well as innovation. You got to be a problem solver. Say you get lost, whatever, something breaks on the ship. You got to be able to do all these things. Navigation, warfare, business, innovation, all right? And he's good at these things, okay? And he sets up, settles in Portugal there in Lisbon. Now, to understand him, we also have to understand that Columbus is an extremely pious, religious man, okay? And his main motivations for sailing out west into the Atlantic were not to simply establish trade in spice with the East. His main motivations were religious motivations, okay? He wanted to travel to a kingdom of great fame controlled by the Grand Khan, who was the ruler. The Grand Khan was the ruler that had been encountered by the explorer Marco Polo when he made his voyages into the East. And Marco Polo had been a Venetian, had been captured and put in prison in Genoa and written his account of his travels there. And he'd written about the Grand Khan and how rich he was and how fantastical his wealth was. And there were people who had the idea that if we could convert the Grand Khan to Christianity, then he could help us to travel to Jerusalem and fund a reconquest of Jerusalem to take it back from the Muslim rule back to Christian rule, okay? So Columbus is very interested in this idea. He wants to go and find the Great Khan, convert him, and get him to fund a crusade to liberate Jerusalem, okay? And that is, in fact, Columbus's primary motivation for going into the west, sailing west to get to the east. That's what he wants to do, right? So when you think about Columbus, you don't only want to think about him in the context of someone who is looking to establish trade. His primary motivations, I mean, there's plenty of trade going on in Europe. He doesn't have to go and find a new route to the east in order to do that. He wants to go to the east because he wants to convert the Grand Khan and use that money to then go and conduct a crusade to Jerusalem, okay? So again, as Isabella and Ferdinand are engaging in their reconquest of Granada and they're engaging in crusade, Columbus is thinking about developing a plan that will fund a crusade to Jerusalem to reconquer it from Muslim rule as well, okay?